Accessing library computer data.
And to make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pensky Podcast. You haven't tuned in before. This is a podcast where we are running through all 178 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, giving our thoughts and feelings about each and every one. Right now we're up to episode 21 of season 6. It's called Frame of Mind, directed by James L. Conway, written by Brannon Braga. It aired back on May 3rd, 1993. In this episode, Commander Riker switches between mental realities, performing in one of Dr. Crusher's plays, preparing for an undercover away mission, and being an inmate in an alien asylum for the criminally insane charged with murder. Clay is here to talk about this one, so right after this, me and Clay are going to go deep on the mind trip that is Frame of Mind.
Where am I? How did you get me off the ship?
The ship again?
What's going on?
I understand this must be disturbing for you, but try to relax. Tell me, where were you a moment ago?
I was on the Enterprise. I was in the middle of a play. But it was here. It was not real. It was on a stage.
I can assure you this is not a stage. Do you remember your name?
I'm Commander... Commander... A second ago, I knew who I was. I was on the ship. I was in a play. And now I'm having trouble remembering anything.
I'm not crazy. You're the one that's crazy.
What? Where am I?
That was actually a pretty good Riker impersonation, actually. Just very abrupt.
My favorite thing about this episode is that his craziness makes his acting better in the play.
Yes, yep.
Where the first time he does the play, his acting is way over the top, and the second time, after he's actually dealing with the craziness, it gets a lot more believable.
Yep. And I did. Data brings up the point where Data gets confused and he thinks that Riker is, going sort of improv to sort of sell the narrative a little bit more instead of that he's losing his mind. And I think that's Frame of Mind seems to be the kind of play to me that would break the audience wall. Like it would break that fourth wall and you'd go into the audience and stuff like that.
One of those really annoying plays where
where you avoid eye contact with the actors the entire
but
time.
they just get you in there anyway. That reminded me of I don't know if you've ever seen Mulholland Drive.
Yep.
But that scene in Mulholland Drive where Naomi Watts is auditioning for a movie, and when she's running the lines with her friend in the house, she's terrible. But when she goes in to actually do the thing, which is all part of like her, delusion or whatever, she's really, really good.
Yeah, yep.
It was the same kind of thing. This whole episode had a very kind of out of time David Lynchy kind of feel to it, which I really liked.
Yeah, it's a Brannon Braga episode. Obviously, it has that sort of high concept type thing going for it.
And for all of you newbies, Brannon Braga is a Scottish dish.
Yeah,
that's made mostly from ham and peat moss.
And the English hate it. So this episode does not go over well. This episode went over worse than the Irish terrorism episode from season 3 when it aired because of the Brannon haggis. Yeah, this is... I don't know. How do you want to start talking about this one? I thought we were going to have a hard time talking about this one. I don't know why. So why don't you prove me wrong?
Well, this one is, if you follow the things I tend to latch onto when it comes to sci-fi shows in general, it should be no surprise to you that I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
The thing, I liked it because of the concept, which is a concept I've seen done a handful of times. If you want to see this concept done really, really well, there's an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where they do pretty much the exact same thing, and it's really good. Because the setup there is that they propose the scenario that her entire life as a vampire killer is all a result of mental illness, and she's actually hallucinating inside of a asylum, much like Riker is in this. But at the end of the episode, they never give you a definitive stance on whether or not that's the case. So there's still a completely feasible reading of it where the entire series of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is actually mental delusion, which I thought was really fun. The thing that got me... So, I've seen this idea before. I've seen it done better, but I appreciate that they're getting a little weird in season 6. But what actually really made me... what really charmed me was that... I thought about halfway through or 3/4 of the way through that they dropped the ball and they were going to do a normal Star Trek, we can't figure out how to end it thing. Because, they play it pretty straight, and then and it's pretty ambiguous as to what's real and what isn't real. And then they have Crusher show up, and then they do this, breaking him out of the asylum, and then he ends up back in sick bay, and he's like, oh, that was really... I thought, because they've done that before, where at the end of the episode like this, they'll just kind of be like, and then he's saved.
Yep.
But they don't do that, and they undercut that 2 or 3 times. And I really appreciated that, because it seemed like the writers were a little self-aware of what they were doing, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I agree that I think it's like the last 15 minutes of this episode that really makes it for me. And it starts with when Crusher appears in the insane asylum.
Right.
Because it's like you say, they head fake you as to what the reality is about 3 times until the end of the episode from that point going forward. And I think it works really well, because the first time I watched it, when Crusher appeared, I was like, oh, this is definitely the reality.
Right. That's the same thing I did.
You keep thinking that, because I think, like what you were saying, the show has kind of primed us for this is how a TNG episode works. And they keep head faking you out of it all the way to the end, basically, where then the other very smart thing I think it does is you learn that what actually happened to Riker is basically what he is told in his delusions. That,
yes.
That he got attacked on this away mission, and he sort of attacked a guy or something. He's been framed for it, and that's basically what happened to him. And in the thing, so there's no duplicity about. You feel that everything they're telling you is a red herring because it all adds up to something. Right.
And I feel like the not just the ending too is subversive. I feel like the entire setup is subversive in a way that I really appreciate. Because at the beginning, after they do the play thing, even the cold opening I thought was pretty good, because during the cold opening I wasn't sure if he was really in a jail cell somewhere or if they were doing a play. I had a feeling it was going to be a play.
Yep.
But for a couple seconds I wasn't sure. And then after that, they get into... Picard briefs him on what his mission is, and I was so glad that this episode was not about whatever that mission was, because it sounded boring as hell.
Yeah.
And it sounded like something they've done a million times before.
Yeah, Riker's done that approximately 17 times, I think, at this point. Like, he tends to do those away missions, because First Contact was the big one that happened to him, yeah.
And the great thing about it, though, is the episode is about that mission, but it's not about it in the way you expect it to be.
Yep.
Which I really appreciated.
Yeah, the sort of design around whatever that sort of going down there into this hell war zone and sort of figuring stuff out is really just a set piece for his sort of mental exploration about what is real and what isn't real, and tying it all nicely together with him acting in a play that Crusher wrote, another Crusher joint. And this one is I guess here's a question to start off: is Beverly Crusher a good playwright?
I don't know, because we've never seen enough plays of hers to
something always happens.
Really make a we've never seen enough of it to really make a judgment call on quality. It's like if you walk in and watch 10 minutes at the end of the first third of a movie. Yeah, is that enough to really judge the whole thing? Generally, no.
But Picard consistently does not want any part of it, which I enjoy as a nice runner, where he doesn't want to. He sends Riker on a life or death mission.
I'll tell you, man. After he got her husband killed, he had to act in a lot of plays out of pity and, out of remorse. So he's been there.
Yeah, definitely true. And they tie this frame of mind play into the entire thing that's been going on. Apparently, so Riker did act in the play before he gets abducted. Is that, or is
I believe that's.
I think that's what happens. Yeah. So then he has that to draw on. He has his Enterprise history to draw on. He has the Insane Asylum to draw on, and. Yeah, I think that, I've been mentioning before that I thought that Riker was getting a short shrift in the show after Season 3, where they kind of resolved his storyline in a lot of ways with Best of Both Worlds. Or at least they took away his sort of edge to keep improving.
Did they already do that whole thing where he was, going to be court-martialed for something? Isn't that, a big thing? Like, it's a two-parter where he was...
Oh, that's season 7.
Oh, that's Season 7.
If you're talking about the Pegasus.
Yes.
Okay, Season 7, yep. So, yeah, we still have that to go through, which makes sense for him. But at this point, he's... Frakes is in this position, and at the end of Season 6, he's actually going to have a couple episodes. This one's included. He gets to spread his wings a little bit. I thought Frakes is good. I think there's one moment here that reminds me of the Tombstone. No, when he goes.
Oh, that part. Yeah, I wrote that in my notes. They needed to do another take of that.
Yeah,
it was bad.
It also comes out of nowhere. Like, the guard doesn't say anything outrageous enough for it to warrant that response. He's like, "How about you put your tray away?" And he's like, "No!" And he strangles him by the wall.
And it's shot weird too. It's like they cut to the master. And it's like they hold there too long.
Yeah,
like you can tell that no one was expecting them to use that shot.
Yeah. He stands up sort of like Frankenstein-y. But what'd you think of Frakes in this episode? Do you think Riker was the right character to throw into this one?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I thought he was good. I thought he... Again, when you have these episodes, you've only got 40 minutes to do what can be kind of a heady thing, so you have to kind of pick and choose your battles and whatnot. But my biggest criticism is I feel like he breaks too easily.
Yeah. I was reminded of Chain of Command. That was a criticism we had too. Not that Picard broke, but I feel both of those... The sort of showing of torture, you really need to drag it out to make it believable that this is like what's happened. He does seem to snap, yeah.
At least in Chain of Command, they're actively torturing Picard.
Right.
Whereas in this one, they're like, you are not actually a starship commander. You what?
Right, yeah.
I'm not?
And he's
how could I have been so silly?
Grabbing his hair and doing pulling his hair and everything like that. Yeah, he does.
I hope he didn't tell Picard about what happened, because Picard would have been like, you
fucking pussy. You told them what? How long were you down there? And I don't think we get there's no captain's log at the end, I don't think, that says how long Riker was held for. Right. If there is, I missed it. But
well, that brings in my biggest problem. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But if we want to stick on Frakes for a minute, I thought he was good. I thought it took me a little bit to really get into it with him, because he can be so hammy that, like, especially in that first scene. Again, they caught me a little off guard. My expectations were one thing, and I stuck it out, and they changed me a little bit, because he comes off really hammy in that opening scene, but then he's doing a play, so obviously he's going to be over the top. He's still a little hammy when he's actually going crazy, but I think it works. I think he's good.
Yeah. I think his performance is good. I think that the script has to rush it a little bit, and but I think overall he sort of plays the back into a corner character pretty well. Riker, some other review said this: Riker's at his best when he's totally relaxed or totally agitated. And I kind of believe that's the case. I think a lot of the times he's really good as the sort of chummy, laid back, like cracking jokes wise ass guy, and he's also really good in these sort of push to the edge scenes in a way that's different from Picard.
Yeah, they definitely do have two different approaches to it. And yeah, he has that sort of second gear where Picard doesn't really have that chummy gear. He has like a faux chummy gear.
Yes, yeah.
But Riker, I feel like when he gets chummy, you you believe it.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't come off as still. Well, I mean, that's a testament to Patrick Stewart's acting too. That fake chummy is pretty hard to pull off.
It is, yeah. I had I guess I'll get your thoughts about this one. The episode that went up a little bit a while ago, or maybe it hasn't. I can't remember what it is. It's we're just talking about the difference in actors is kind of interesting on the show, where we were comparing Spiner and Stewart, and. Right. Stewart is, I made the analogy to baseball. Stewart is like a great power hitter, and Spiner's more of a 5-tool player, where Stewart is, there's a couple things that Patrick Stewart cannot do well in acting. He's exceptionally good at the gravitas kind of stuff and the serious stuff. And I find
pain. He's really good at pain.
He's really good at pain. His comedy is mostly just playing on the fact that people know him as the gravitas actor.
Yep.
So I think that's not really as much of a leap, but Spiner to me is absurdly good as Data, but he also can play different characters in a way that Patrick Stewart I don't feel is capable of playing them in different ways.
Yeah.
I always feel like it would be Patrick Stewart playing a role as this guy.
Okay.
Spiner, I feel like he has 4 sort of go-to modes that he can be in, but it's slightly more than that. And the analogy I guess I'm drawing is that Frakes is sort of limited as well in what he can do, but he has the 2 phases, I guess would be the way to describe it.
I guess my thing with Spiner is he's really good as Data, but anytime he's doing something outside of Data, I can't help but feel like he's always, silently winking to everybody.
Yeah.
Like he's, like if he was playing Santa Claus, he would like lean over and pull his beard down and be like, "No, it's me, Bruce Spiner."
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but which comes off as a little bit annoying to me. But
it's a little self-involved. I think.
Yeah. That's
I think the problem is that the Data performance, I think, gets taken for granted.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's how good it is.
Right. Like you miss how much work he's doing as Data. And if he's anything like these, I think Spiner as a personality is actually more manic. So he's actually very restraining his performance as Data.
Yeah.
And Data's interesting in this episode as I love actor Data, who is kind of stiff, but is also trying to pretend to be an actor at the same time.
Right.
And he's involved in the rescue mission at this of Riker at this thing, which is not a real rescue. Although I watched it and I was just as I was sure that the Crusher thing was real, I was sure that the rescue scene was real.
Right.
And I thought that Riker would do what he does, which is betrays them. But I thought that was actually really happening.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And at that point, it moves into Riker goes back onto the ship, and he starts to realize that through his repeated head trauma that keeps bleeding, he's also not in reality yet. Mm-hmm. Is that where the show breaks it back? Is that where he grabs the phaser at that point?
Yeah, when he's up in sick bay and Crusher heals the head wound and it starts bleeding again, that's when he steals the phaser, yeah.
Okay, and then what'd you think of the effect of breaking the realities?
It was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's using what they had to work with,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything much better they can do. That shoots him back to the alien world, and then he does it one more time where he sets the phaser to 16 and says he's going to blow up half the building.
Man, at least they keep Riker's characteristic of being phaser happy consistent.
Yes.
Because we all know he loves to just crank that thing up and blast away.
We knew that was reality.
If only there had been a defenseless girl there that he could have aimed it at.
Just the tech who was like tending to him as he's laying on the table or something. He just lights her up. Take that. Yeah.
Also, what sort of weapon is that? Where he's like, I've turned it to 16. This should theoretically blow the half of this building off. That sounds like a very unsafe weapon.
I was watching that and I had a sort of that opinion. Phaser setting 16 seems to be basically the thing blows up. I seem to see a little difference between the phaser blows up and it destroys half the building. Also, I laugh when they have a setting just called like heavy stun. It's very funny. like there's a difference between just stun and heavy stun. Like there's I guess it's how long you're out. But I always laugh that Like, if you shot someone with a heavy stun phaser for, like, minutes, would it do anything else?
I don't know. Ask Riker, because he clearly knows. He's clearly done it.
He's hammering that button. Yeah, it's a frame of mind. I think I'll say one of my favorite scenes from this one that I think they play really well is the sort of first look at the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest thing, where Riker goes to the cafeteria for the first time and he meets the girl who claims to be a Starfleet officer.
You mean when he walks by a blonde alien that looks suspiciously like Willem Dafoe?
Yes, yeah, who's painting or playing with blocks at the same time. And he runs into a lieutenant or something who says she's going to rescue him. Riker gets a little bit excited, and then she's like, I have a communicator. And he says, oh, good, we can use it. And she pulls out a spoon and talks in the spoon. I like that scene. I think it plays off pretty well.
My favorite scene is that reflective
therapy?
Reflection therapy.
Yeah.
I really like that scene.
Did you? I guess we could talk about that one. It's a big turning point in the episode.
Yeah.
I watched it. I watched the episode twice, and I felt that the scene didn't work quite as well the second time. And I don't know if it's because I'm overthinking it and I think that it needs to mean something. The second time I did realize that it should have been Data instead of Picard as the logic aspect. But outside of that, it made sense.
Yeah, I guess my only response to that would be that I feel like the people that they picked are the closest to him.
Oh, they're all
on the ship.
Yeah, they're all. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. It's not like Geordi showed up, you know.
Right.
Thank God. Am I right, guys?
Geordi's here with some insight about the warp core. Not now, Geordi.
But I mean, I think the concept of the reflection therapy is kind of pretty shaky. But the scene that they get out of it, I really liked because it's an interesting idea that they're pulling out these representations of his delusion, different aspects of his character based on these, using the characters from the Enterprise who would embody these different aspects.
Yep.
But when I really thought it got good was when they started to address him personally. Like they started to break the fourth wall of the therapy.
Yes.
Because I don't really know what to make of that, even now.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know because I guess we could talk about that because that's part of his delusion. Is that is the way this episode ends supposed to be that everything he does in this delusion is a self-defense mechanism against them trying to probe his mind?
Kinda. Well, what I kind of liked about it was when you get into these episodes or these kind of stories, they can be a little bit too clean in their. I mean, they kind of have to be most of the time if you really want to get this point across. But what I actually kind of liked about this was by the time you get to the end and he comes back to actual reality, it's kind of clear that the aliens that are doing this are just making stuff up on the fly, like trying to course correct and stuff.
Yes, right.
And I kind of like that because generally you would have a sequence like the reflection therapy thing where, they start talking, they break the fourth wall, which leads him to do X, Y, and Z, which then leads him to think he's back on the ship, which then leads him to realize like everything blows up and he's back in the thing or whatever, and it's all part of the plan, that kind of thing.
Right.
But that was never the case here, which may be indicative of my problem with the episode, which we can talk about in a minute. But for right now, that aspect I kind of liked because it seemed more like they were actively trying to keep him in bounds as he kept trying to break out, which I, as a fan of The Prisoner, I appreciated.
Right. Yeah. It's So your interpretation of the Picard and Troy and Worf at the end, where they're sort of warning Riker about that's Riker reacting and sort of getting ahead of the sort of program that the aliens are putting him under?
I think so. The only thing that's suspect about it is what they actually say to him is that you are still on the Enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of breaks I don't know. Because I think it works fine, and I think it's weird enough that it drops a question mark in the middle of the story that I think it works well enough.
Yeah, and I'd agree that I think this is the kind of story that it doesn't totally need to make sense at the end. Like, not everything needs to line up of his delusions to some sort of like reality-based thing that's going on at the same time. I did
Right.
like that scene. I like the way that I like the actors' choices in it. I like the way they talk. I think Picard delivers his story really well for whatever reason. Yeah,
Well, he's the only one who acts.
yeah.
The other two just sort of like say it.
Right.
He's like, delivering a soliloquy from Hamlet.
Right, about how he was chased in an alley by a man with a knife. Yeah, that's true. And Worf serves as the aggressive nature of Riker, and Troy's his feelings, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, so let's get into, I guess, what you thought the big problem was. I think I'm kind of hitting the wall here, and that the reason I thought this was going to be a difficult episode to talk about is because once you get to and understand the main idea, it's really just the exercise of being confused by the episode is what makes it a good episode.
Right.
So once you're aware of everything, there's not too much to talk about. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but that's how I feel. So
yeah, it's interesting because it's like, where you have chain of command, after you unpack it, you can still come back to it because the performances are really good and the look of it is really good, and there's lots of other stuff there that's worth coming back to. This one, as much as I liked it, I don't know if I'd really come back and watch this again.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of, because this is the kind of episode that I would rewatch if I was going through and watching a bunch of episodes. I would watch this one, deep into the run.
Yes,
because this is the kind of episode that I can appreciate being a fan of the characters. That is, if you have seen it before.
Right.
If you haven't seen it before, I would definitely recommend watching it.
Yes,
But my big problem with it is similar to my problem with Chain of Command is, what the hell was the point of all of this? Because unless I missed something, he wakes up in the real world, he pokes that one dude in the eye, and then he grabs the knife, and he gets out of there. And you never really find out why they held him, what they were trying to get out of him. Was it all for the sake of the guy that he killed while he was down there?
Did he actually kill somebody? Is the question.
Right.
I guess.
They don't make that clear. He says, I managed to take one of them down or something like that. But
right.
He doesn't,
yeah.
He doesn't say I killed one of them. But even so, what is the point of what they're doing to him? They're not trying to get information out of him.
I think Picard at the very end does have a line that the aliens were looking for information. I don't, if I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of a throwaway as to they're just doing it just because. But I mean, I guess I would have to assume that what we're told early in the episode, even though it's not reality, is actually what's happening on that planet. Mm-hmm. So I guess there's various factions going at each other, trying to sort of take over the government, much like a coup in Turkey or something like that. And
Ooh, topical.
Topical, yeah. This won't go up for 3 months, and then everyone will be like, what the hell is he talking about? So I guess I kind of agree. Outside of this makes a cool concept for the episode, it's not particularly clear to me why they're doing it. And it also ties into the fact of, are the delusions Riker's defense, or are they trying to set him up somehow to fall into something?
Right. I don't, after they do the reflective therapy thing, and he keeps freaking out, I think they're like, well, I guess we're just going to have to lobotomize you or whatever.
Right.
I think they say that. I could be wrong.
Right. And would the treatment that they were pushing on him, is that what they actually want him to do? Or
that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, is that the end game, is to lobotomize him? If so, why?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't. The aliens themselves are really ill-defined as far as their motivations, and I think that's the thing with these episodes, that if you've got someone trying to, for instance, take the prisoner, the motivations of everybody involved are super clear.
Yep.
We want information, and the number 6 says, I am not going to give you information.
Sure.
And that's all you need to hold up the concept of the show, and everything they do under that umbrella works. So when you get into this kind of thing where you're messing with somebody's mind and making them think that they're hallucinating a different life and all this kind of stuff, if it's actively being pressed upon the person, there has to be a reason for it. Otherwise, what the hell's the point?
Yeah. I'd agree with it. So that's your big gripe with the episode, I think.
Well, that, and ever since Sean pointed it out, I can't unsee Michael Dorn's terrible tough guy acting. And when he tries to show Riker the moves with that knife, it's It's like you ran into a guy in the subway who was like, "You want to see my sword?"
You want to see my my magic? Yeah, that is true. He's he's definitely the way he move, and also the fact that Dorn does that like Klingon Tai Chi all the time now.
Yeah.
It also ties into that. Yeah, the slashing of the knife is funny. I did really.
He moves around like if your dad was watching a kung fu movie.
Yes,
or something.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's just so goofy and lanky when he does it.
Yeah, he might be a little bit too big or something. I guess that ties into a lot of stuff. Was kind of the weird things you pick up after you watch all these episodes. When Worf and Data are rescuing Riker, and they're like Data's escorting Riker out, Frakes he towers over Brent Spiner, which I never really noticed before. The height difference, it's kind of crazy.
I didn't notice that. Yeah.
And the just the other scene that I really enjoyed, I did besides the bizarre Worf dancing slashing, I did really like the interplay between the characters when they're explaining the mission.
Yeah, that was good. I remember liking that too. Yeah.
Yeah, Worf getting a little frustrated that Riker's not taking it seriously. Which makes sense. I think that totally fits. And it again ties into I think that the best trio is the Riker, Worf, and Data trio.
Yeah.
If you have to put those three together, I think that they work really well together.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just that I haven't been watching as many as you have, but I wish they would do more of that stuff with Riker and Worf, because they do have a really good dynamic. And I feel like at least the episodes I've watched, I haven't really seen enough of it.
No, yeah, it doesn't. It kind of fades away a little bit. Yeah, but I do like their interplay, and I like the. Although we'll get into that a little bit later. There's other interactions that I really like. Yeah, I think that's it for Frame of Mind. I really like this episode. So let's go to our final thoughts. I'm going to play an audio clip. Me and Clay are going to come back and give our final thoughts and ratings for Frame of Mind.
You said I was terrified. Of what?
I was in a dark place. Cold. Frightened. Someone was there.
Who?
I felt threatened by them. Trapped.
You're doing very well. Now let's try to find out how you responded to these feelings. Try to focus on your actions. You felt trapped. What did you do?
I was angry. They were attacking me. I fought back.
I felt pain.
I was injured.
I began to panic.
There was a struggle. And I...
You what? What happened?
One thing I do think is interesting is that it's
What?
Who are you?
Where am I?
I'm not crazy.
What is this place?
All I can think of whenever someone says that is the Suicidal Tendency song, Institutionalized. I'm not crazy. You're the one that's crazy. And that's always what pops into my head. Anyway, I guess it's becoming a little bit clear after Cause and Effect and Frame of Mind why Brandon Braga sort of became one of the sort of top Trek showrunners in a weird way. He had a lot of influence on the later series and everything, but he does high concept episodes really well.
Which I said are my favorite.
Yeah,
so I always appreciate a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, we're going to give our final thoughts and ratings. If you're on YouTube, you can click in the upper right-hand corner and you can vote along and let us know what you thought.
If anybody on... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done.
If anybody on YouTube is screaming at me because I completely missed the point of why they were doing this and they want to write it in the comments, please do, because I would like to know.
I'll report back about... I'm sure someone... yeah, there's probably, if not a theory, an outright extrapolation of what goes on.
I'll see it because these are the ones that I listen to are the ones that I'm on. Don't worry about it.
All the views on Clay's are from Clay.
It's just
like,
me.
I'll watch that one again.
Well, I have a computer, a tablet, a phone, and many other devices hooked to my TV, which can all go to YouTube and all open up episodes that I talk on.
Just a cacophony of Clay, his debut album. Yeah, so let's give our final thoughts and ratings. How about you go first for this one?
This one, if you haven't seen it, if you're going in blind, I would say it's a 4. I know that's kind of breaks the rating system, but if you have seen it, I'd say you could probably skip it unless you really want to watch it again. But yeah, I would give it overall. I would give it a 4. Yeah, I think it's well done.
Yes, I agree. I think it's a 4 as well. I always kind of fall into I'm hitting the level of like whoever that federal judge or the Supreme Court justice that said you know pornography when you see it. It's weird that I guess
I know pornography when I watch Star Trek. So
I'm looking at it right now, and I can tell you that this is definitely some pornography. I guess I know what a 5 is at this point after having watched so many of the episodes, and I guess it's helpful to explain why this wouldn't be a 5 to me. And I guess it's just because the 5s, to be a 5, you either need a 100% pure concept, which I think is what cause and effect is.
Yep.
Or it needs to have a little bit more of a resonance on some kind of emotional level.
Right.
And I think that this idea is really, really cool, but it doesn't hit me or stay after with me. As I'm watching it, I really enjoy it, but I'm never going to think about this episode.
Right.
And I think...
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think that's what the difference is between a 4 and a 5, really.
Yeah, for me, I feel like 5s have to be a prime example of what makes the concept of the show great.
Right.
Like, they have to be tied into the show in general. Like, you can't do, but you can't do Best of Both Worlds on like the X-Files or like Fringe. Or something, you know,
right? Yep.
At least not the way that they do it here. You can't do Yesterday's Enterprise on Knight Rider.
Yeah,
or whatever, whatever your favorite show from that time is. And those are really great executions of the overall premise, like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, yep.
This episode is not that, because as I said, I've seen it done a ton of other times. Batman the Animated Series did an episode similar to this.
Yep.
It's not unique to the concept, which is also, this is a completely different discussion that maybe we'll have when you cover TOS if I end up doing one of this episode. But that's also the reason why I kind of push back against people who say City on the Edge of Tomorrow or Forever or whatever it is the best Star Trek episode, because I feel like you don't need to be
out of all the series or out of TOS.
Out of TOS.
Okay.
Just because I don't feel like, I feel like you could have plugged that concept into any sci-fi thing and gotten the same story.
Yeah. Yep.
Which, you know, it's just a little gripe, but I feel like there are better episodes that there's at least one other episode that probably fires on fires all the pistons of the concept better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think it has to be special to this show. And you can always do the sort of mind trip episodes, and it doesn't take advantage of the setting. Like, you know, cause and effect, like we mentioned, takes advantage of the setting that you're in. Like, there's very limited situations where that kind of process could be going on. Yesterday's Enterprise, you know, it ties into the cast, it brings everything together, it ties into the history of the series, basically, because you see the previous Enterprises. It's all kind of neat.
And I would, you know, to distill it down, I would say a 5 is one I would say, if you're going to watch Star Trek, you have to watch this episode.
Yeah.
A 4 is an episode I'd say, if you're going to watch Star Trek, you should watch this episode.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
And I think this is a should, it's not a have to.
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Frame of mind, I'm going to give it a 4 as well. I think it's a good, fun episode. Great on your first time watching it through, I'd assume. I'm a little bit familiar with it at this point, but it still holds up. I think it works really well. And it's always good to see a little bit more Riker. I like Riker. Riker has been, this watch through, Riker has become my sort of underdog character that I really enjoy. And I don't know why. I think it's just the performance. The others are standard and you know them. Riker was kind of a surprise to me. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. If you're on YouTube, liking the comments, appreciate it. If you're on iTunes, a rating review helps get the show out there. If you want to throw a couple dollars to Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/ThePensky Podcast and you get exclusive content. We just did... What did we just do? We did Event Horizon, right? Me and you.
Event Horizon.
Captain Miller, take me home. And we did Event Horizon, everyone's favorite 1997 sci-fi horror. If you guys go to Patreon and give a couple bucks, you get exclusive access to that. And that's a very nice thing to do. And also, if we get to $50, which we're pretty close to, we have to do 2 of those a month.
Ooh.
So,
shit.
Boom.
Event Horizon and Sphere back to back.
Yeah. I'll be more confused than when I do 2 Star Trek episodes, and I'm like, wait, that didn't happen in that episode. Guys.
When is this episode coming out?
This one will be out in a couple weeks.
Okay, all right. I was gonna plug Unjustly Maligned, but I don't know when that's coming out, so I'll keep you updated on that.
Yeah, well, I'll add a note to the end of this if it has come out yet. Clay was on Unjustly Maligned, and we can check that out, and we'll mention it in his next coming up episode 2. So, guys, thank you very much for listening. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Clay, thanks very much for coming on.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And we will see you next with Second Chances, which will be our chance to sort of redo all the mistakes we made in our previous podcast. Guys, see you later.